first, isn't it?
All right, so now I will admit folks.
Great.
Here we go. Hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. Yay, here we are. This is our very special Zoom. We've still got some folks coming in, so we will admit people as they come, but lovely to see a lot of familiar faces on the Zoom from our Dog Star knit along with Cashmere Goat. And this is the winter knit along we're doing this January 2025. And tonight is the super exciting time that we're going to spend some time with Alexa Ludeman of Tin Can Knits. I heard you described as one half of the design team.
Yes.
Alexa's joining us from Vancouver. And how we're going to run this is I'm going to kind of monitor the chat for questions, but we're going to open with a little bit about what we always like to hear about, like how did a designer become a designer? How did they make their way to finding knitting? And then I have a few questions that were emailed to me. And if folks want to use the chat or raise a hand, I'll be watching for all the things. But, you know, sometimes with Zoom, it can be a little, where's the everybody? So if you're not seeing a response or something, I will definitely be watching the chat. So if you have like more of an involved conversation or question, let's say, it's easier just to say it out loud. You can just be like, hey, hand wave in the chat. So without further ado, thank you for being here, taking time out of your busy schedule. Glad to see your knitting, of course, and hope everybody has their knitting too.
I really enjoyed watching the knit along via Instagram, seeing everybody's color combos and seeing all the lovely sweaters coming about. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it has been great. I feel like we have, this is one of our larger knit alongs. We've got a nice closed Facebook group. We've been having pretty consistent, like 20 or so folks who join us on Zoom. And then we have in our in-store meetups, we have like people have to sign up just because we don't have unlimited seats. So we have 3 different sessions, and it's been just amazing to see all the little bitty dog stars and the big dog stars and all the medium dog stars in between coming through. And so many people also are blowing our minds with how, with like choosing multiple colors, not just one contrast, but really having fun with throwing another color in there.
Yeah, that's the beauty of knitting color work, isn't it? You're like, oh, what if I throw this in? Oh, I could do it again, but I'll just add like a mustard yellow this time or whatever it is the addictive nature of the color work.
It's totally addictive. And a lot of folks who are new to color work altogether and doing so well with this pattern. So
Good. I was wondering if it was anyone's first color work or first sweater.
I would say there's a fair number of first color work. I there may also, yes, there are definitely a couple of first sweaters too. So it's awesome, and also awesome too because you know where you can start a little color work on a sleeve and kind of start wrapping your mind around it, and then there's a lot of good expansive of stockinette in between, and that makes a good, that's
A
we've
little bit.
learned that makes a good knit along though, because if it's too fiddly all the time, it's like people can't talk to each other in chat when we hang out.
You need the conversational knitting. I always feel like I've got multiple projects and one of them is like a ribbed hat, like something that you're like, I could definitely talk and do. I'm doing right now. Okay, it's on like a million needles for some reason, but I was knitting a vest for my mom. I decided to knit it like 5 days ago, and it's her birthday on Friday. And so I'm just doing the edge, and I had it on one needle, like all tight, and now I have it on like 6 needles. So we'll see how that goes.
Amazing. And what pattern is that? I know everybody's wondering.
Yeah, so this is our for Christmas this year. I knit vest for my kids called Best Friends because we like jokes. It all started, my daughter got like a commercial vest, and then my husband got the same brand, and he was like, we're best friends now. And she's like 14, so she died a little inside. So we decided to call the pattern Best Friends. So I knit them for my kids, and my two sisters-in-law also knit, which is amazing. And so they knit for their kids. And so we had all 9 nibblings all in coordinated vests this Christmas. It was pretty great.
Love the best friends. Oh,
So now Nana
so
needs
good.
in on the best friend. She needs her own vest.
Nana needs the bestest friend.
That's right.
Well, tell us a little bit about how you made your way to knitting design, because you guys are phenomenal. And I think I said in my email, we spend a lot of time recommending your patterns, the app to knitters who come to the shop. So tell us about the journey to design.
It was great. So I heard from some knitters who picked up the app in the knit along, and that's so great. We're so pleased that people are enjoying it. It's always surprising whenever I do anything like this. I'm always like, ooh, we have been doing this for like 14 plus years now. That feels like forever. Um, it's like a shocking number. But I started knitting when I was a teenager. My mom she wasn't a knitter, but like all other crafty things she would do. So I was like, oh, like I think I'd like to learn how to knit. And like the next day, she was like, I have these plastic double point needles and some acrylic yarn and a Stittionary from the 70s. Good luck. It did not have instructions on how to knit. So I throw with my left, which I recommend to no one, but is if you do anything like enough times, you get pretty good at it. Sometimes I hear from knitters who are very worried about their knitting style and how they think they might need to change it. And all I can think is, it'll be okay. Trust me. So I was knitting away. Learning from the Stittionary was good because first I have this scarf that kind of goes, and then you can like almost see where I kind of figured it out. And then I would try all these different stitches. So like a little bit of lace, a little bit of cables, and I would knit these like really, I cannot describe how ugly they were, 6-foot scarves in all different colors, and then sew them together into quite the blanket. But it was good. I learned how to do all kinds of different knit stitches that way. And then there was a yarn shop by where I was going to university, so Urban Yarns. And I started working there, and they were like, oh, like you should do some simpler patterns. We always need like button scarves were hot at the time, just like the shortest little bit with a few buttons. So I did a few of those, and that's where I met Emily, my other half. She had maybe just finished her degree, or maybe she'd been working for a bit, but she comes from an architecture background. So she was doing a bit of design as well. And it speaks a lot. So I was designing like the simplest little button scarves, maybe a little cowl. And she was like, no, full triangular lace shawl. That was like the first thing that she ever designed. And that says everything about her in a way. And so we met working at the shop, and she was like, oh, we should design a pattern together. And indicative of the rest of our partnership, I was like, no, we should write a book. And so that's when I was pregnant with my first baby, Hunter, and we wrote a book called 9 Months of Knitting. And so it was just like some baby knits that were pretty simple, but we really enjoyed doing it. And then we decided we should write another book. And then that's when she went walkabout in the UK. So she went and she landed in Scotland. And that's where she met John. So I knew she wasn't coming back. And so, yeah, we've been working kind of together ever since. We used to have meetings always. We've pretty much always been long distance. Even when she lived here, she was on the island, which is a ferry ride away. And then she moved like 8-hour time zone away. And so I'm a night owl and she's an early morning person. So we would always meet at like 10 p.m. my time, 6 a.m. her time, to discuss all of our designs and things. And yeah, it's been, I don't know, quite a journey. I think we have maybe 9 books now or 9 collections. And Our most recent work is the app that we've been working on, trying to find a better way to display patterns for people that's a little bit more approachable, more accessible, all of those things. We've learned a lot about pattern writing over the years, of course. Yeah.
Well, and so, I mean, I think the brilliance of the app too, with the inclusivity of sizes that you all have is streamlines it, but also there was one knitter who was like, "Oh, I'm so ADD. It's just perfect because I just get to focus right in and there's the orange highlighted bar." And in fact, it was on a Zoom a couple weeks ago that um somebody had the question about, well, what about like tracking repeats? And then one of our other knitters on Zoom was like, "Wait, I'm right there." And she like held it up to the screen. I was like, "See this arrow? This is what happens." So we really enjoyed it, and just I think it's such a great compliment to, and comes preloaded with some of those free patterns that are great, especially for the newer folks too.
Yeah, we know some people, us included, really, like everybody's a little afraid of the change, right? Anything different, especially like the thought of like downloading an app and trying a new technology can be like quite daunting. So we try to always take away as many barriers to that as we can. So that's good. A recommendation from a shop is always like, well, maybe I'll give it a try after all, eh?
I mean, I'm always like whipping out my phone and saying, well, can I just show you? Like, look how cool this is. Let's pick this. You're thinking of the flax. So okay, choose which weight. And okay, now let's see which sides. Look, here's the choices you have. And it's like, oh, wow, that seems really approachable. So yeah, we love that.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for the sort of fun background and intro. So I'm going to jump into some questions
Yeah.
collected. And so the first was, let's talk about sleeve length in a bottom up construction, and specifically where the sleeve joins the body, and what is the sort of, is there a typical difference, or typical distance between that join and like the top of your true armpit, like right up there, versus like where you would join? Is that standard or is that personal? Like, what do you imagine
Yeah,
as
I
a
think
designer?
um it's almost like you really want that overall measurement, right? Like from the cuff all the way to the yoke. So you can add them together, right? Like you've got your yoke depth and you can kind of add that to your sleeve and that gives you an idea. And then I also find sometimes I just do a provisional cast on a sleeve. So provisional
Hmm.
cast on, knit my bottom up sweater, and then I can come back and adjust the length by an inch or so.
Hmm.
Then when I knit for my kids, they just grow so much all the time. It's very annoying. I was knitting a sweater for my son over Christmas. I'm not even like a slow knitter, right? Like I'm pretty fast. And like I finished it and he was like, yeah, like, these are not right. And I was like, oh, so close. So I always knit them a fold over cuff now so that just sweaters last a little bit longer. Because I find
Great
they
idea.
they do that. It's funny. There's always like the debate in the knitting world between bottom up and top down. And there's like, I would say probably the majority enjoy a top down. When we were doing Dog Star, it was part of designing our strange brew recipe pattern. So that's like a recipe so that you can knit your own bottom up or top down colorwork yoke, and you can kind of design yourself. And one of our ideas is that if you work bottom up, you usually don't quit at the yoke, right? As to where you just start with this hard bit, it might be a bit more daunting. So we did go bottom up for that one. It has.
I kind of, yeah, I love that like there's a psychological component. I think that's actually when we had our Zoom last winter with Kate Davies. I think she actually also said that about the car bath. She was like, "Yeah, I just like to. It's sort of like eating my vegetables, and then the fun part comes at the end. That's dessert
Yeah,
when it gets exciting."
yoke fun. It's perfect.
All right. So interesting. So yes, that's interesting about so add the yoke depth to the sleeve length to come out with where you'll
Yeah,
land.
then you kind of get this whole measurement here.
you get the whole measurement here. We've been talking a little bit, a couple of knitters were wondering, and I mean, I always am sort of always like, well, it's not going to be up in your true armpit. That would be uncomfortable and not very pleasant. Like, so
Yeah.
it's, you know, my guesstimate for myself when I'm kind of trying to estimate length is like a couple inches below the natural armpit.
Yeah. I would probably say that's like what you're aiming for is a little bit deeper than that, than your
Mm-hmm.
actual arm depth. The other thing that gets tricky is sometimes it depends how tight your neckline is. If it's
Mm,
tight, then it's going to sit here. If it's looser, it tends to spread a bit and it's going to make it a little bit longer. But
okay.
an inch of extra yoke depth usually isn't too much of an issue.
Yep. Hey, that's great. Um, well, the next question is about neck ribbing. So this person is making a size 2 to 4
Mm-hmm.
and did the neck ribbing bound off, but it seems way too loose. Should I, one, knit more rows of ribbing, or two, frog back to the body and knit more decrease rounds?
I would knit back to just above that last chart and I would do an extra decrease round. The
Okay.
little ones are tricky because you need that bind off to be loose to go over the head. And then, but you also want it to sit a little bit close to the neck, right? So I would say you
Mm-hmm.
probably want a little bit of a decrease and maybe go down a needle size for the ribbing.
Okay. Um, I'm making my notes. Or
I like it. These questions are
um,
the nitty gritty of knitting.
they are. Let's see. All right, well, this is a big one. Any tips for using 2+ colors when one, catching floats, and two, to keep the colors from twisting and tangling? I would like to venture into using more contrast colors, but I struggle with them tangling up and having to untwist all the time.
So, okay, prepared for a controversial opinion here. I never catch my floats, like ever. Uh, we usually don't design with super long floats. It's usually a bit of a goal. Doesn't always work out, but usually we don't want them to be too long. But I knit this really cute sweater from Max and Knitter. It was called So Foxy, and it had like 25 stitch floats, and I didn't catch a single one.
Okay.
And partially it's because I photograph my knits a lot, and inevitably, if you catch your floats, a tiny bit of that background color comes through and makes me a little nutty. So that's part of it. But also, when I do color work, I knit with two hands. So I have my dominant color in my right and my contrast color in my left.
Mhm.
That way, I always have the right color coming from above and below. So
Mhm.
I don't have to think about that more than once. And then I can also sit one ball on each side, or if you have the right outfit, one ball in each pocket, however you want to do it. Um, but that keeps things from getting tangled, which is quite nice. I've
Yes.
taught beginner color work a few times, and I always start with the hat, so they come kind of with the ribbing done. And then there's a plain round before they start the color work. And I always have them do that with the opposite hand. They hold their yarn in the opposite hand. And you have never seen ladies curse me out so badly. They're like, I hate it. Why would you do this? Like, I'm leaving. They hate it. But then when you get to the color work, you only have to do like half your stitches with your yarn in the other hand. And then everybody kind of calms down. And by the end, they're all doing it.
That's
It's been pretty
awesome. And
successful. But I know there
that's
are
so
millions of ways to knit color work. And, I'm a believer in there's not a right or wrong way to do anything in knitting. But that's my way. So I like it because it keeps everything a bit neat and tidy.
well, I really love that idea of pushing people towards the one color in each hand because my Zoomer people know that, you know, when I was first doing color work, and like you said, you know, there's just a lot of ways to be a knitter. And I was just like, well, I guess I'm gonna just, and I was literally like kind of tossing one ball over, and then at the like this tossing thing, I mean, talk about a terrible ergonomic idea. But anyway, it made color work. But then at the end of each round, it would be like, okay, now it's
We
gonna be
undo.
untangle time. And it was a lot much later that I discovered that there was another way to do it, and the internet helped me. but people do kind of wonder like, well, but how do I get started with that left hand? And I like that idea of like, just jump in with like one round of non-dominant hand knitting and
It's
see
a
what you can
little bit
do.
like learning to knit again, but it's fun. Emily, my lovely partner, she is just a slow colorwork knitter. Like she does it quickly, but she just picks up and puts down with her right hand. She's a thrower. So she just picks up and puts down, and it's, I think sometimes there's nothing wrong with being interested in being faster at knitting, but every once in a while I'm like, it's literally the slowest way to get clothing in the world, I think. So if your color work's like a little bit slower, it's fine. Nothing bad
Fine.
will happen.
We have talked a lot about that too, that it's check your, your tension, you're double checking with your chart, just, it's not going to be a speed race, and that's just what
That's
it's all
okay
about.
too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I want to knit a worsted weight sweater, but I want to wear a sock weight sweater. It's the conundrum. And I always think this. And then the other day I was sort of like, I have sweaters. What is the rush? Could just knit a sock weight sweater. We'll be fine. No problem.
That's amazing. I love that. Um, any questions from our Zoom room? If people want to pop in to the chat with something that is on your mind, or if anybody would like to, I think if you do the hand raise button, it's going to come up for me and I'll be able to really see it up there. So if you want to raise your hand, if you want to show and tell too, because I bet that'll be a little bit fun.
I love show and tell. It is my absolute favorite.
That's awesome.
So now that some of you have finished your Dog Star sweaters, you can just take this one on next. This one's cartography. It's top down, if that helps. This is one of my
Tell us.
favorites. It's just like all small repeat color work. And it's
Mm.
like, I don't know, it's definitely my happy place, the small repeat color work. It's like just enough to keep you going. You can try different colors. This one's a vaguely self-striping yarn, which is always fun. I think if I had like one knit I could only do one knit for the rest of time, I would pick this one. Would
That's
definitely be color work.
it's so so beautiful, and I could totally see how that would be absolutely gorgeous. And what is the yarn weight?
This one's like a DK worsted-ish. It's kind of in
Cool.
the middle. Yeah.
Mm, lovely. Okay, Jamie. Hi. Jamie, how's the hand
Hi.
raised?
Actually, your comment kind of what goes into my question is what makes you decide top down versus bottom up? I like top down just because I can keep trying it on. I just feel like I have more control, but I would love to be better at or more comfortable at bottom up.
Yeah, I think I also enjoy trying things on. When I originally designed this one, I did it bottom up, but it was actually because of all the color work motifs and how you want them to kind of meet at the neckline, it was easier to knit for people top down, I think, because sleeves are pretty different on different people, right? You can have the same chest measurement and we're all different in the sleeves, for example, things like that. So it's just a bit easier to make those changes, but sometimes it's nice, like you probably know what color you're going to make the body of your sweater, but I don't always know what colors I'm going to use in the yoke till I get there. I would usually start with some sort of palette and then immediately throw two colors out and have to add another one in like immediately as you go. So it's sometimes just a bit easier to do that at the end. And also, yeah, definitely more committed by the time I've got a body and sleeves on the needles. If you want to knit a bottom up sweater, but you're very uncomfortable with knitting bottom up, one thing you can do is you can just knit the yoke first. So you do like a provisional cast on. Provisional cast on's your best friend. It's a little fussy, but it helps in a lot of situations, I find. So doing that one and then just knitting your yoke, and then you can try on as you go as well. Occasionally there's a design that works better with decreases than increases. Not too often, but that's another factor as well. Sure.
Great, thank you. And I totally get the color thing because I had my colors picked out and I had colored in different ways of doing it, and then it wasn't until I got to the cuffs and the yoke. I did the provisional cast on for the body, so I could just do the sleeves and the yoke. But when I couldn't really see it until I started knitting with all the yarn what I was going to do.
I know just what you mean.
Yeah, thank you.
That's funny. That happens. You can like plan and plan and plan your colors, and you're like so sure even. Like you're like, I'm looking at these two balls, they look very different to me. And then like 3 stitches in, you're like, oh, that's not correct. It's so funny.
One of our in-person folks who was in one of our meetups, it was cool because it was her first color work. She was working on the sleeve. She brought it in. She's like, don't even look at it. I know it's like all like the color work just like whoop. She's like, I was too tight, but I'm gonna actually play around with a little duplicate stitch right now because I want to kind of look at some other ways that I could use and maybe like another color. And I was like, oh yes, good, great.
It's all about play, right? We're just playing with color. It's pretty great.
Totally great. I discovered the long tail provisional cast on, and now I feel like it's my new best friend always.
There's so many provisional cast on styles, aren't there? You can tell it's popular. People have figured out a lot of ways.
Yep, completely. Anybody else have either show and tell or
So did most people use 2 colors or did most people add more colors in?
I don't know. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of multiple colors. It's like 2, yeah, like 2 contrasts. Somebody's got like multiple contrasts, which is amazing. And like doing a whole coloring situation where they're testing it out, swatching with different colors. But yeah, there's definitely some doing the one color thing, and it just is so great because they all look so different and yet similar.
It's a classic knit. We're all doing the same thing, just a little bit differently, right? We do a lot of swatching on the needles, which is like we'll get going on a yoke and then we're like, not sure how this next part's going to go. And so then sometimes we'll just knit back and forth on a little section, see where it's going to go, take it back out again. There's a lot of swatching as you go.
I love that.
Sure.
Well, okay, Mary, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. I had a question, Alexa, about I chose to do a provisional cast on because sleeves are a bad thing and I'm short-waisted and all that. So would the strange brew pattern work my sleeves from the top down once I get my yoke done on my Dog Star?
Yeah.
I could figure, because that was the thing I was looking back at that, you know, instead of the what are you doing? Increases on your sleeves, right? I need to be doing decreases on mine. So that pattern, I could say, oh, I have this many stitches and it's going to be over this length. Is that how it works?
Not so much over this length, but if you just choose a size with the closest number of stitches at the upper arm, then you can just follow those sleeve instructions for sure.
Okay, because I wasn't sure how far down I would go before I'd start doing those decreases.
Usually there's like, in our patterns, there's like the straight section, then there's decreases usually about to the cuff or maybe another inch before the cuff or something like that. So where you want to make your adjustment is at the top there. So if you want longer sleeves, you're going to knit a little bit more there. And if you want shorter sleeves, you're going to knit a little bit less there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I laugh. Me and my husband are the same. Like we would choose the same sweater size, but he's like all torso and I'm all leg. Like we always have to move the car seat because like, so I have like, I don't know, feels like about a 6-inch waist or like torso. And his is like, I don't know, 12. It's really long.
Amazing.
So even though we knit the same size, it's always a little bit different.
Bodies, they're just so incredible.
Yeah.
A question in the chat from Karen. which is how long does it take to design a sweater and then put it to paper and go into production?
I would
Paper
say
or digital or whatever.
like forever. We're the world's slowest designers now. We used to be a lot faster. But I think we do kind of more samples now, things like that. But I guess it a little bit depends on the pattern. The Love Note sweater that Emily designed was really fast. Like she was like knit it in like 5 days or something to go to a wedding and wrote the pattern pretty quickly. And then others seem to take us a really long time. It kind of depends if you get like stumped on something where you're like, oh, I don't actually know how this little bit is going to work. So then it takes a little bit longer. Or sometimes you're like, great, I wrote this pattern, I'm knitting my final sample or whatever. And then immediately you're like, oh, this did not work the way I thought it would. And then it's a little back to the drawing board. Like we're pretty comfortable with yoke sweaters now. We've done lots and lots of those, but we did a cable collection a couple years ago, and it felt like every design was like, oh, there's a lot of points of interest, let's say, figuring it all out. And trying to come up with like a balance with so many sizes, the balance of simplicity of writing as well as it's kind of not enough for it to be a simple thing to do. You have to be able to explain it in a simple way so that it's hard for people to get it wrong, right? Is kind of the goal. It's not a perfect system, but that's what we're always kind of working towards, making it hard for people to not know what to do next.
I think you do a really good job saying.
We're trying. It's good. Because I think, especially when you are doing a new craft of any kind, it's like so daunting, right? There's like a million things. I whittled a spoon recently, of all things, and I have this charming scar to prove it. I was learning how to whittle, and it was funny because I was like, I have a Kevlar glove now. It's okay. But I was learning how to do it, and I was like so many words I don't know. I watched like some YouTube videos, as one does, a few blogs. And I was like, I don't know what like 6 out of 12 words mean. And it's just a bit daunting, right? When really, like, you're just doing this. It's not, rocket science per se. And I thought, oh, when people come to knitting, sometimes it just feels like there's so many things you don't know. What's a gauge? What's this? What does worsted mean? And it means a bunch of things, not the most helpful term. And so always we want people to just do the next thing, just whatever the next step is, the next stitch, all of those things. It's a little bit what the app is about, right? It just shows you just what you need to know so you can just tap through, just do the next thing. You don't have to worry so much about every detail right from the get-go.
And also the in-app little definitions, links to tutorials, super brilliant.
Yeah, we don't need to keep it a secret, right? People can know what the two together means. It's good.
Exactly. That's helpful. Karen is saying, I really appreciate the links in the app to help.
Okay.
Yeah. Another thing about the app, it's so convenient how if you add a little note to yourself or whatever, like I decided to do, I'm knitting 2 tin can knits sweaters at the same time because I just cast on for a flax for my son. And I decided to do increases, like make one right, make one left. And so I just wrote that out and I thought, oh, well, it's just right here. I can see it. I can remember what I'm doing. And there it was.
It's true. I didn't realize how many notes knitters take. I think I don't take any notes. I don't know why. I just guess the next time. I read my knitting pretty good too, so I can kind of see what I did, but not a great note taker. But that was one of the things right away when we were developing the app. People were like, I got to be able to make notes or else I can't use it at all.
Yep.
Note-taking group.
Yeah, so good. Okay, anybody else have a question or a show and tell?
Was there a favorite yarn at the shop that everyone was knitting it in?
Ooh, wow. Yeah, so it's a mix. And, you know, we also don't like exclude people who have stash yarn from the knit along. So if people are knitting from stash, that's cool. I would say two of our top sellers definitely have been like vintage DK. Definitely. It's a budget friendly yarn. It works up really nicely. So we have a bunch of people using vintage DK.
Yeah.
I am wearing the Kathmandu DK by Queensland, and a lot of folks also enjoying that yarn. Has a little bit of that nubbly texture. Yeah, yep. So it's like,
oh, there you go.
Yep. And then the Fleece BFL by West Yorkshire Spinners has been another fave. So I would say those are the tops.
Excellent.
Yep.
All right, who wants to show me their color combination? It's my
yeah,
favorite.
we're gonna I'm getting ready for a spotlight situation if you're ready for that. I will pin you, spotlight you. Come on, Jamie, come on.
I'll go first. I was getting ready to
Yes.
take myself off. I lost one of my stitch markers thing. Okay, so I'll show you. I did the sleeves first. Oops, can you see?
Oh, nice.
And I actually got done and added duplicate stitch to the center so that it was the gold. And then that kind of helped me decide the rest of it. So the gold is on the round, which I also love. This is BFL.
Is it like a bluey gray?
It's a blue.
Mm.
Oh, you know what? I'm just gonna let me just take you'll see my house. I can't, whatever. I don't know what to do here. Is that better? And then,
there we go. Yeah.
so then I just decided that the gold would be like just like whatever speckly part of it would be
It's
the
your
gold.
center. Yeah.
Yeah. And even in the top, I added a little gold in the top to just bring it all the way up. So
I love it.
that was mine. Thank you.
Yay.
Beautiful.
So beautiful. Okay, who else is ready for a show and tell? Oh, Teresa. Hello, Teresa.
I finished the sleeve.
Yay.
That's my color combo.
Oh, amazing. It's a little tonal. I like it.
Yep. So that's what we did. I finished the sleeve. I've started the other one. So this is where I am on the other one.
Excellent.
Awesome. Love that. Mary, do you have any show and tell? Because I remember we all were swooning for your colors.
It's one of the things I miss about working at a yarn shop is like, it's like you get to start a new project every day. You don't have to do anything. You just are like, let's pick out this fun project.
Yeah, so I've made a lot of progress this week. So and I did all kinds of color charts like with my coloring pencils and stuff. And then today I just made a different decision too. Like I just decided that it needed more pink and purple because that makes me happy. Can you see?
That's an excellent reason for more pink and purple.
Yeah. So
is that a quilt that you made behind you?
It is a quilt, but I did not make it. A lovely friend of mine made it. So I'm very happy to have it.
We always laugh. Quilters always choose the best color combos. Like they just know all the things. I'm always learning from them.
Yeah, I hang out with a lot of quilters that are knitters as well. So it's fun to see what people put together. Yeah.
I'll pick out a color that I'm always like, that will not go at all. I don't know why you picked that one out. And I'm always wrong. They're always right. It's like a good swampy green always makes your color work better, or like the pink.
Yeah.
Brings everything else out. Yeah. It's like a magic.
So I'm really excited about this. All this, like I got through the first chart and I was like, oh, this is good. So now I'm partway through the second chart and I'm just very excited.
Just one more row, just one
Yeah,
more
but then
row.
I just have a whole sweater to knit because I just cheated. So
Then you'll have a beautiful yoke to motivate you.
I will just, have a sweater in July or August, probably. Take me that long to do the
All
rest of
ready
it.
for next week.
So, yep, that'll be fine. So, thank you.
Well, it's yeah, I mean the colors are gonna inspire you for like spring because it just feels like you've got a garden on the needles. All right. Anybody else? Anybody else? Like maybe Gwen, how's yours coming?
Still working on the,
Oh, we lost
I
our
know.
visual.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, good.
Still working on my first sleeve, but I've got I like the basic contrast between the two colors.
It's a classic.
Totally. What's the yarn you're using again?
The vintage DK mocha and mochi.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, thank
Yep.
you for show and telling for us.
Obviously a palette that I also enjoy.
Anybody else?
I have sometimes this sort of dichotomy between what I wear and what I want to knit with. And thank goodness for my children, because like I love to knit with like what I would describe as like some unicorn rainbow barf. Like it just every stitch makes me happy. It's so great, but I don't really wear it, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
Oh my gosh.
it's nice to have kids who will wear it for you.
Yes, get a little color therapy that way. Well, Kristen is joining us from the shop. She's the shop owner. Kristen, I'm going to spotlight you. Oh, you're muted.
She's wearing lots of Colorwork.
Yep.
I don't, oh, sorry, the phone's ringing right next to me. I don't have color work to show. I'm almost done with my first sleeve, but it's a child sweater, so there's no color work, which I was a little disappointed about, but it's fine. I figured it had to do with math.
A little bit of math.
Then so I was like, whatever. But this is what I've chosen a gradient for the yoke, and so it's gonna slowly change, and I only had to choose one color and I'll get multiple colors. So
excellent. You let the yarn do the work.
What?
You let the yarn do the work.
That's where I'm at right now. I decided to let the yarn do the work. I'll do a little, but it can do the color changing work. So it's not that exciting because it's not done yet, but it's gonna be great. And I'm almost done with the first sleeve. So we have seen in the Facebook group and in the store group a lot of great combos. It's so fun to see all the different choices everybody makes and how beautiful everybody's sweaters turn out. I mean, you must see this all the time on Ravelry or whatever. Just
delight.
It's so fun to see. It's so fun to see how everybody interprets it and all that. So thank you so much for joining us.
You bet.
Yeah. I just had a question, like, do you ever see your knits out in the world, like in the wild, but like they don't know that you're you, and you can just be like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing it.
It's a few times. So my sister-in-law, Emily, I only collect Emily's. So my sister-in-law is also named Emily. And she was like our main model for a long time. And so quite often people would come up and talk to her while we were together. I love your designs, love everything you do. And then to explain a little bit. And once I saw when she was wearing a barley hat, which is from our simple collection, and it was knit clearly in Noro yarn, like it was quite distinctive. And I was like, oh, did you knit your hat? And she was like, no, and walked away. And I was like, somebody definitely knit that for you. So funny. I was like, bold. When we were kind of first getting started as Tin Can Knits, I was on vacation with my family in Hawaii, and a woman came up to me and she was like, "Oh, like I just wanted to say, I like love your designs." And I could tell it was the first time my mom thought, "Oh, maybe she does have a real job. Maybe she does."
So amazing. Oh my gosh. So we've definitely had something that always comes up is how, and we talk a lot about ways to modify knits for your own body shape, and of course like sleeves, it's pretty easy, like torso length. But a question came up about just sort of like round yoke shaping and bustier busts, and the issue of upper torso measurements. And so can you just speak to like how what are some ways that you would recommend if somebody's finding like they have to choose a certain size if they don't want it to be gigantic on the top, but then how do we make mods when we sometimes need to?
Yeah, usually like one size is not what you're knitting in a way. You're usually knitting sort of different sizes in different spots. And ultimately, it's kind of about moving fabric around. So if you've got a bigger bust, then you want more fabric just right here. You don't want it through the whole yoke. So yoke sweaters are also, I find, pretty easy to modify. So if you're working bottom up, you might have more stitches in the body. You'll have done whatever size you need for the body. And then you might, when you join the sleeves, not put you might not put it evenly front and back, right? You might put more fabric to the front. And then when you do your first decrease before that first chart, you just decrease to whatever the smaller yoke is that you need. And then away you go from there. But it's also like if you find you have narrower shoulders, then you might start with a smaller size. And when you get down to the bottom of the yoke, then you might switch to the bigger size. So you might do extra increases there. Usually the way I would do it myself.
Yep.
And then I'm more straight shaped in the body, but Emily likes a good curve to her knits. So she would usually do like decreases to the smallest point just at the underarms and then increases out to the hips. And sometimes you just want to go straight down and then out for the hips, depending on all the different sizes. But it's really, the main thing is that you're kind of moving fabric to where you want it to be, which is maybe a little bit easier said than done. But those are a few of my tips. Or if you're working top down, it's really kind of that last increase before you split for body and sleeves. Then you might add extra stitches in the front only. Or if you need a bigger upper arm, you might add stitches and you'll just put those on the sleeves. You don't need to make an overall bigger size. Same with a raglan. If you're working away and you're like, oh, I'm going to need an extra inch on the sleeves, you're going to increase just on the sleeves for a little bit. That kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. Super helpful. I can't tell who it is, but I've had 3 in the chat has a question. What cast on did you use, or maybe do you prefer for a body, for the body?
I am the most boring cast on person. It's just always a long tail cast on. My answer to all things. And usually a bind off in pattern. So if it's 1 by 1 rib, like a 1 by 1 bind off, or 2 by 2, depending. I know other people are much more interesting with their cast on. The tough one with the bottom up sweater is always that bind off, because you want it to be kind of loose enough to go over your head, but like I like it a little bit closer to the neck. Emily and I always debate that. She likes hers a little further, like mine a little tighter. But yeah, getting that bind off loose enough to go over your head without looking sloppy. And I find for me, I just use a needle size that's maybe 2 sizes bigger or 3 sizes bigger to do my bind off. And then it's stretchy enough. Another thing I thought I would mention is that sometimes you finish a sweater and it's not perfect, or it's not whatever you had in your mind. And there are kind of two things you can do. Some things, like if it's a little too short, an inch too short to make you want to reach for it in your closet, it's worth it to change it. Go for it. Add the inch. It feels painful to have to undo bits of a sweater in various ways, but if it means it's a lot faster than knitting a whole other sweater, always. It's kind of worth making those adjustments. Or like, I don't know, my son was like, oh, I can't wear that sweater. Like it's too tight over my head. I was like, this is a 20-minute fix to just like do a looser bind off. There's no problem. So some things are really worth making those changes. And then sometimes things come out kind of wildly different than you expected. And sometimes the answer is just to style it differently than you thought you were going to. This is now my oversized sweater that I wear like this. The common thing. Sometimes you gotta love the sweater you got. Ooh, for 300 stitches, I'd probably still do the long tail, but I would cheat. I sometimes pull the center of the ball and the outside, and that way you've got kind of two working yarns and go from there, tie a little knot, and then do your long tail from there. Then you definitely won't run out of yarn.
And that's also like what blew my mind about the provisional long tail. I was like, whoa, I could be doing this all the time with long tail. What have I been doing with my whole life except for casting on and coming up short by like this much and then having to recut? That's what I've been doing with my life. But now I can be doing that way.
I like to go in wild swings of like having to cast on twice a bunch of times because it's too short, and then having like way too much yarn. This is for like a hat, so 300 stitches. It's a lot.
Yep.
I cheat by using both sides of the yarn. So I don't have
great
to
method.
estimate. Yeah.
Yep. Love that.
Good.
Well, any other brave souls want to show and tell?
Show me what you got.
Looks like Julie. Hi, Julie. Julie from Washington State.
Hello. I'm just getting the sleeves and the body joined. So the color work is about to start finally. Yes. And there's a lot of contrast in the color work itself, but this one's pretty tonal. So I'm hoping that I won't change my mind after I've done about 3 rows of color work. I don't know.
mean, to be fair, the mint and the red would be a great 2-color combination too. But I think you'll have enough there. That's my guess.
Yeah, I have not done 3-color in a while. And so I'm hoping to get better at it on this project.
Excellent.
Nice. Fantastic. Any other? We've got a few minutes left, so if you have any more show and tell, we would be here for it. And Teresa added in the chat that sometimes she casts on 10 stitches long tail and undoes it to figure out how long a tail she needs based on that. Yep.
Smart. It's like a tiny, tiny gauge swatch. What is my cast on gauge?
I wanted to, this is a good sort of almost coming to wrapping up here, Alexa. Any like designs in your mind or anything you can like just like tease us with a little bit about like something that we can watch for coming up?
Oh yes. We have a new yoke design coming up that I think if you like Dog Star, you might like. And what we're working on in the app right now is making it so that you can drag and drop any pattern in, and it'll put it into our format. Because, well, we know you're all big Tin Can Knits fans. Nobody reads one author, right? So everyone wants to bring their pattern. So that's what we're currently working on in the background right now.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Um, Super cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think I might have watched an Instagram live with you and Emily when you guys were launching the really awesome colorful hoodie.
Oh yes, the hoodie. That one was like a joint design with me and my daughter, and it was so funny. She was like, she's been asking me for a long time to make a hoodie, and I'm always like, I'll make you a sweater and a hat, best I can do. Uh, and so Emily was at our house with her family, staying with us, and she was like, "You have like a cool teenage daughter. You should do whatever she says." And I was like, "Why would you say that in front of her?" And then not only did I knit it for Hunter, but her best friend Aziza, and they were so cute on the beach together in their hoodies. It was an excellent choice. But man, hoodies that's like a cowl and a hat and a sweater. And if you add a pocket, there's that too. So,
Wow.
a lot of knitting, but I gotta say, it gets a lot of love. They've been wearing them quite a bit and they love them.
Oh,
So
so
worth it.
good.
Yeah.
Well, Hannah Marie popped into the chat wondering about whether you have plans to make the app available and offline.
Yes.
Yay.
It is top of the list to make it offline and also print. I know some people love the one size, but they don't want to be on their devices. I get this. So those are two of our top priorities for sure.
Mhm.
Nothing worse than flipping open your pattern to knit and finding out it's not there. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's amazing. I also, this seems like it would be way more complicated, but when you were talking about how maybe you're knitting a bigger sleeve or whatever, like, could you ever mix and match between sizes in the
That
app?
one is more complicated. It's not what the app
Yeah.
does best right now, but I know that that's like kind of a common thing. So yeah, we haven't quite solved it, but we're rolling it around for sure.
Incredible. Well, we are so grateful to you for your not only amazing patterns app and just your generosity with spending an hour with us here on Zoom. So thank you so much, Alexa. Really appreciate this time with you.
Really enjoy it. Feel free to tag us on all your photos or send them to us via email, tincannknits@gmail.com. We love show and tell. So can't wait.
That's amazing. Well, thanks everybody for joining and happy knitting to all and happy dog starring, and we'll just keep sending the progress pics your way.
Definitely. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. All right, take care. Bye everybody.